Hey, everybody. Welcome back to NVTV. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to do a little bit more information about protecting yourself and your information financially and personally. Because like we always say, security is very important and we need to keep on top of it. There's some really scary scams going around that we wanted to make you aware of and make sure we're giving you the information so you could protect your finances and protect yourself. Again, just so everybody's aware, I realize we're sitting down with Amy again today. We are not wearing masks, but we are in a boardroom about 12 feet away from each other, so safety precautions have been taken. So let's get right into it. The first thing I think we should talk about is the contact tracing scams that are going around. Can you tell us about that? Because that is crazy.
Yes. As if everybody wasn't already overloaded and overwhelmed and probably sick of hearing about COVID-related anything, we continue to feel it's important to let you know what we are seeing and how that's affecting our customers and just some of the things that we want to inform you about so that you're protected. So contact tracers. So if somebody comes up with symptoms or they're tested or they have tested positive, you would be contacted by contact tracers to try to figure out if you had contact with those folks who had been diagnosed or had testing positive, so that you could be made aware and can protect yourself and do the protocols that you need to do. But one thing that we want to continue to remind you is they should not ask you for money. They should not require any bank account information. They should not ask for your social security number. All of these pertinent things for your particular bank account information and personal identifiable information, they should not ask you. They do not need that information. If they are asking you that, it's just a way to get your information so that they can either charge you for a test or a test kit they might want to send to you. So just be wary of those, scams. They are more prevalent than you might think. And I know we always kind of feel like we live in a small area, but it doesn't matter. All of these nationally related scams that you hear about or could hear about, they're happening here. They're happening to our customers.
Right. And I'm glad you're bringing that up because a lot of people think that this is Malta or this is Zanesville, this is New Holland. That's not happening here.
Unfortunately not.
But it is. And the scams are so different because we already talked with you previously about how there's coronavirus scams and people are calling and saying, hey, we've got these test kits. Do you want us to send you one? And that's how they're getting scammed. But this one, to me, is a little bit more scary because they're actually saying you may have been in contact with someone. Give us your bank account information and we'll do this. So it was really important to me that we talk about this because, and I know it was you too, obviously, because you brought it to us. But for someone to call you and say, you could have been in contact with someone who's positive, which is scary enough, especially if you have a compromised immune system. And then for them to say, give us your credit debit card information and we'll do this. Of course, people are going to give it to them because they think it's going to be some kind of security or protection.
Right. And unfortunately, and most banks are probably the same as we are and what we experience in that you don't hear about it until after the fact.
Right.
So unfortunately, we're hearing about it when we've either reached out to our customer because there's been a dispute or a transaction or something that they're not aware of or whatever. And then we have to dig into that story and ask them, several questions to get to. But did you do this? Did you provide this information? Well, yes, I did, but and it's kind of like, but that's where we just have to go through. It's not that we're trying to be, invasive to what, their financial situations are, what they're doing, but it usually has required us to kind of like get through that story before we can figure out that, oh yeah, that probably wasn't something you should do. And then that's just an inconvenience for the customer because then they have to either close an account, close a card, do something that might make them, have to do additional work with their bank accounts or whatever, and then be just, scared that something else might come out because let's face it, when one scammer tries to do one thing, they could be selling that information to another scammer to do another thing, and they might very well wait a good period of time before they do it. So,
yeah, because then your guard's down. You think you're
safe.
Then
your guard's down. So we don't like to sound like the negative folks when always saying, please be wary of these things. And we're not trying to be pessimistic. It's just really informative because we have this information. We come across it almost daily, and we want to make sure that our customers, as well as anybody else in the surrounding area, needs to know, here's what's going on, here's what we're seeing.
Right. And like Sam and I have always said in the past, if it saves one person from getting scammed, then it was worth everything to
Yes.
put the video out there or the podcast now
Yes.
to tell people what's going on.
Because typically it might start out with small dollars with these scams, but it ends up being fairly significant money for people. And, already people have their finances stretched because of, unfortunate situations, either related to the virus or not. And so that's just another stress that they don't need. And some of these situations, it's not like we can do anything to help them get the money back. So we want to educate so that they can understand. I mean, I hate to say if it sounds too good to be true or if it sounds it probably is, but just always think if they're calling me, what should this, and so it might require you to do a little bit of, education or research yourself. But most all of these government, sites, there are so many opportunities to go out and research things for what should be happening, just so that you can educate yourself.
Right. And it's always okay if somebody calls you and tries to do this whole contact tracing scam. It's okay
Absolutely.
to hang up on them and actually
call
call
back.
your health department
Yes.
or the actual number for the credible department
Exactly.
you're trying to get a hold of and verify that that was the actual
Exactly.
call. And I mean, we're talking about your health. So if you need to call and verify that was correct, do it.
And as most of us have probably figured out, especially in the last 8 months or so, your financial health is just as important as your physical health, because
Absolutely.
obviously all of these things kind of play into the stressors of keeping yourself healthy, no matter on what level.
Right.
So
Yep. So one of the topics that you had, talked a lot about that we want to discuss and let people know about was researching before you donate.
yes,
Let's talk about that, especially with the holidays coming up, because people are hurting more than ever.
Yes.
So we really need to talk about that.
So again, people are playing on people's, ability to want to help others too, because I know it's hard because we hear a lot of negative stuff in the news. Could be factual, but it's always playing on the negative side. And we don't want people to feel like there aren't great people in our communities and a lot of other communities doing great things for people, especially around the holidays. You're right. So if you're getting those calls about donating, before you just readily give up your information, you can go to ftc.gov and look at their charity. So it'll be ftc.gov / charity. Sorry, that's hard to say all at one time. And that way you can understand if there are actual national campaigns for charitable situations, or, if you're in your local area, contacting your Chamber of Commerce, things like that, to see, is this something that, is out there? Is this something that's legitimate? Or actually reaching out to one of the agencies that might be related to that type of donation and see if that's what, kind of requests they have going on. So, I think it's just, again, people want to be helpful. They really do, more people than we think. And that's always great. So this community, as well as the other small communities where we're located personally, as far as our institution, are doing great things. And we want that to continue. We just want you to be, protecting yourselves and following up on it a little bit. Hey, not answering that question, well, sure, here's my account information, but just saying, let me think about that and let me do a little research. Let me call back a number that
Right.
might be the actual number, and then do it that way.
Yep. And I would also say be careful of this on social media, because it's really easy to do kind of
It is.
scammy things, on especially Facebook. So if you see something that could be really interesting, and maybe it's something that's close to your heart and something you would really like to donate to, maybe don't just click on that link and donate. Pull up another browser, check out the company, make sure everything's legitimate.
Right.
Maybe they have their tax ID numbers. You can make sure things are, on the up and up before you're doing that.
Right,
I
because
can see that being bad.
Scammers are very skilled at making you think you've clicked on something that looks exactly like, what you would
Right.
expect one of those sites to look like. And it's just, step back, think about it for a minute, do a little research, and then go back out and actually access it yourself through another, avenue. And then
Right.
that way you can make sure that, what you're donating to is going to actually go to help who you're really intending to help. So, Because we hear a lot of folks that'll call in and say, but I clicked on that link because it was on Facebook and I wanted to help out that person and I wanted to make sure I was donating to their campaign. And I am not by any means saying that all of those things are fraudulent. I'm just saying do a little bit of your own investigation and due diligence before handing over your money, handing over your account information particularly, because there are all kinds of ways to protect yourself when doing that.
So the next thing I think we should talk about is, it's kind of general, but social media and spending money on social media. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So again, we're approaching the holidays, and we're seeing a lot of people that are having out of the ordinary purchases for themselves. I mean, most institutions will look at your spending habits, and if you're doing things to protect your customer, as well as the financial institution, you're marking those transactions as something that are out of their pattern. So if you happen to get a call from any of our fraud, support lines, I'm not saying always don't. If you don't trust that call, by all means, call the bank. I got a call and I think it was from your fraud department. Is that true? We'll be able to tell you, yes, it was. And it was because of this transaction. It was either a larger than normal transaction for that customer's pattern or their activity, or it was out of state or something like that. So typically what's happening, especially in our situation, is we're calling to confirm and validate with you that was your transaction. Usually that's all we need. We can release that case. We can update your account and you can go, forward with spending. But understand that that's why you're getting those, especially during the holidays, because people are spending outside of their normal spending habits or their patterns. And that's all that we're looking for. So hopefully folks don't get upset with those calls, because really usually all it takes is for you to say, yes, I can validate that that was my transaction, because those people aren't asking you for your account information. They're asking you to validate a transaction that just occurred that seems out of the ordinary. But by all means, if you're uncomfortable with that call or don't really understand that number and you don't want to actually speak to them, call the bank. In most cases, call any of the banks, and they'll be able to say, yes, we can confirm that that was a call that our fraud team sent out, and we just need you to verify this information, validate it for us, and then we're good to go.
Yep. And I would also let people know, because I know one thing that happens often is they get those calls and it might not be from your financial institution. I just want to make it very clear. Your financial institution will never call and ask you for your social security number. They will never ask you for your account number. We have that information. So if your bank or your financial institution calls you and asks you for your social security number,
right,
hang up the phone.
Right. Yes, there are certain things that we have. And unfortunately, we talked about robocalls a little bit in some of the other segments, but just remember the robocall scam situations are they're very slick, because they make it look like a local number. That's where they always get you, because whether that's a number in our county or that's a number in the surrounding counties, I can trust that. I would say just know that we are not going to ask that information, and even if you are talking to a banker, call back and talk to another. If you're uncomfortable, by all means escalate it. Call back. Right. And just say, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not really comfortable with this, and explain it to me, and maybe get a manager involved with things like that.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to verify.
Right. Don't be afraid to verify. I hate to say, don't be afraid to be a little pessimistic, but this is your money. You work hard for it. You don't want to give it over just because you're trying to be that good citizen. So just, again, a lot of these things happen via the phone. Robocalls, like I said, again, are using local numbers. They do that on purpose because they know you're going to answer it. Social media, especially coming up on the holidays and because of the virus and things like that, people want to take advantage of people who are kind-hearted people. We don't ever consider this something that, our customer has done something bad.
Right.
We do try to say, here's why this would be something that I would try to protect against in the future. Please don't do this. And if you've done it multiple times, then we have to have a little bit of a different conversation, just because we don't quite think that you're understanding maybe what we're saying. But it's not because we think somebody's done something terrible. It's just that they have done something that they feel is okay. And it's just not. So we're trying to educate them on that.
Yep. So another thing we should probably talk about is it's so sad, the fraudulent unemployment.
Yes, and we talked a little bit about this maybe when it started a couple of months ago, but I want to kind of talk about it again because it continues to happen. So one would probably think, well, why? How can that happen? How can someone in Zanesville, Ohio, be expecting unemployment from the state of Arizona? Okay, I'm just using that as an example, not saying that's where we're getting from, but how is that possible? Well, because people are expecting unemployment, and maybe they're expecting quite a few payments of unemployment. So when they get a call or a fraudulent call, and the fraudster is lucky and gets someone who's expecting payments like that, and they say, "Hey, we can get you that. Here's what all we need to get those monies to you, just your account information or whatever." So the customer's not really thinking, "Well, why does it look like a description from a state that I don't live in and I don't work in?" They're just not thinking that because, again, a lot of times they're significantly behind on payments with those unemployment. So they need it. They need the funds. So they're not really looking at that description. Why is that description coming in? Now, we are looking at that and trying to protect against that even hitting the account. But it's still continuing to happen. It's happened as recently as a couple days ago. So it doesn't happen to the level that it was, but it does. Even with the state of Ohio, unemployment, just be careful. I mean, you know what you're expecting. If you're getting something and you're not expecting it, absolutely call the bank and we can help direct you who to contact, who to reach out to. I get it. The calls and the wait times are probably kind of significant with unemployment offices, but
Right.
I mean, we're all experiencing that with that, and they're just kind of like anybody else in this time. With all of these things going on, they're overwhelmed. And so we got to try to be a little patient with it. But, just, what you're expecting. And just look at those descriptions. And definitely if it's from an area that you're not working or living in, you should probably question it so that we can help you help understand what those payments are.
Well, thank you for sitting down with
You're
us
welcome.
today. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
I feel like we're constantly picking your brain.
That's okay. Glad to help.
As always, guys, if you have comments, questions, anything, send us a message, drop us a comment below the video, and we'll see you next time.